do the regulations and guidelines help? Which is kind of the same thing, really, because it depends very much on the differences between standards, regulations, and requirements. The requirements being what we're trying to achieve, the standards and regulations being the way in which we hope it's going to be achieved. We started talking about building built in 93, which is what we call our standard, our guidance, whatever you wanted to call it, for acoustics in schools. It's very simply that the moment you produce a building regulation and then a standard which says schools have to have these numbers associated with them, reverberation time, internal sound insulation, noise levels, and so on, once those numbers are in a standard, they become the number that's always applied. But if they're part of a regulation, then it can't be a very good number. You cannot have above average acoustics in all of your schools. You can't regulate for that. So it has to be a bad number. It has to be the absolute minimum that you can design to. And therefore, we all end up designing to a minimum standard. Is that if we don't have regulations, then there's no incentive at all for anyone to design to good acoustics. Well, there is for acousticians, for acoustics consultants, because we believe schools should have good acoustics, and also we get paid for doing it. The other counter-argument is very simply, well, think about what things were like before we had regulations. In fact, we've always had guidelines since 1953, I think, in the UK, but they've never been enforced. But before 2003, there was a design note, there were some standards, there was absolutely no way whatsoever of enforcing them, and I actually worked as an acoustic consultant for 12 years before actually realizing that this document with the guidelines on school acoustics existed. So it's very helpful that now we have regulations saying things like this. And the important thing about the regulations is that this states the intention, what we're setting out to do. It doesn't state numbers. It says each room or other space in a school building, blah, 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 has the acoustic conditions appropriate to its intended use. In other words, it has to be fit for purpose. That's hardly a surprising statement, but it's the first time it has actually been stated as a regulation. So yes, they have to set numerical criteria to show compliance with the regulations, but these are minimum standards. Does anyone here know the technical term catnip? There's a term in environmental control called BATNIC, which is best available technique not entailing excessive cost. In other words, what we can do to protect the environment for a given amount of money. Catnip is what we now have in acoustic standards, which is the cheapest available technology not involving prosecution. The least we can do. But there is a clear, that's a best straight line fit through there, there's a clear dependence of background noise on pupil numbers. Therefore, the answer is, if you want low noise levels in classrooms so that you can teach pupils with hearing aids, then you've got to have small classes. Not surprising.